What's the harsh reality no one accepts? Very late. But sometimes you are the problem in a relationship, and if people keep on leaving you, it may well be your fault, even if you don't feel like it is. Edit. I'm so glad my first ever award and my highest upvoted comment is about something not totally ridiculous. Thanks guys. Yes. A lot of yes. People fantasize about finding the one, but a relationship is 50% finding the right person, and 50% being the right person. You're the bad guy in some own story. So many of your enemies will never admit to doing anything wrong. But the thing is, neither will you in some situations. People justify their own behavior to themselves. That's why so many people can't apologize and double down on the shitty things they do. Alternatively, some people do things that aren't shitty but are perceived as shitty by another party. Sometimes values don't line up and both parties can be correct in their own way. Alternatively, some people do things that are shitty, but only because we perceive them as shitty, because those are the values we have, even though the other group has wildly different values, so they don't think it's shitty, and think you are shitty for your values. Some parents just don't love their children. Sometimes you must accept the truth, that there always will be idiots who will duck it up for rest of us. And sometimes that idiot will be you. Pandemics last years, not weeks or months. To add on to this, flattening the curve wasn't about reducing the total number of infection cases, it was to slow down the rate and distribute it out over a longer period of time. The current precautions we are taking are to allow hospitals to not be overwhelmed with many cases at once, not to completely prevent us from catching the virus. Agreed. People naively believe the lockdown will allow them to skip the virus altogether. No. You're just being placed in a queue for a mandatory ride. Hard work doesn't always pay off. Something I learned my first week in the corporate world, and again even up until all the coronavirus layoffs. A non-executive's value to the company is strictly dictated by which side of the balance sheet their compensation falls. I'm thankfully in a job that's considered overhead, but am still employed. I work in part quality. Quality is, by many companies, as only a cost. It's very frustrating, because in actuality it's cost avoidance. You spend X dollars now, and prevent Y dollars in loss later, where Y, X. Some people just can't be saved. You could give them every benefit in the world, and they still could choose to throw it all away, and you can't do anything about it. This is a tough lesson to learn. People have to want to change. Nothing you can do can make people change if they are resistant to it. Not everyone will turn out to be a superstar or super successful in their life's beauty and money matter outlet. The world is nicer to rich and beautiful people. And who knows, maybe the most boring jobs seem like the least painful. Beauty matters in how people treat people. As an average looking guy with amazingly photogenic kids, I get told a lot that I must have a beautiful wife. My daughter used to get free stuff all the time from shopkeepers etc. Wow, she is so cute. Can I give her a sweet etc. Really opened my eyes. Absolute strangers would offer her small gifts all the time. As a former ugly kid, it's really ducked up how people extend their shallowness to treating ugly kids badly. Mistakes do define you. The little ones don't. But if you make a big mistake, it will alter your life to an extent. Saying that they don't matter is a lie that will prevent you from diagnosing life problems later down the line. This is something I wrestle with a lot in terms of my recovery from alcoholism. I quit young, at 24, and have been sober 7 years without relapse. Despite that accomplishment, I have alcoholic neuropathy, nerve damage, that will never go away, no matter how long I'm sober. This is a wonderful accomplishment though. Quitting is so hard. Even if you have every reason to, you chose life. Bad things will happen to you for no reason. I always liked the Star Trek quote, "It is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose." That is not a weakness. That is life. For that reason, some things just happen and that's the way it is. If Shrek 5 happens, it's going to be a shitty cash grab and Shrek is probably going to do the floss. Please don't say things like this. I don't want to think about it. This is a harsh reality I can't accept. Pain is inescapable. Not even acknowledging that pain is inevitable and preparing for it ahead of time can lessen it. You will be taken by surprise. You will be hurt. You will not enjoy it. You will not be able to numb it. And there is nothing you can do except take it on the chin. Edit. I guess I should add. It's true you can prepare yourself to experience certain kinds of pain and lessen its impact. But when I said this, I meant that eventually something was going to come up that you never prepared for and cause pain anyway. Just didn't do a good job of making that clear. Sorry. Oh, and yes, pain can also bring about growth. I don't disagree with that at all. I'm reminded of an iconic quote from Robert Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land, and I paraphrase, I have discovered why humans laugh. Not because there is a levity, but because there is a wrongness. Humans laugh because something is wrong. Apostrophe. Very few people truly accept their mortality, and most of the time when it truly sinks in, people get scared and want to avoid it. Shit keeps me up at night sometimes with a dread swelling in my stomach. Edit, and just like that my fears have become my most upvoted post. This world. I feel mine in my heart. You don't always keep the good friends you meet, but that doesn't mean you can't make more later on down the road. Edit. Thanks for my very first platinum, gold and the silver. You guys are awesome. From the BoJack Horseman finale, and something I've realized and made peace with. I think there are people that help you become the person that you end up being, and you can be grateful for them, even if they were never meant to be in your life forever. Apostrophe. Alexa, play Mr. Blue. Money and good looks matter, and if you don't have enough good looks, just add money. And if you have neither, get drunk until you don't care anymore. Nobody is truly selfless, and that's okay. There's a guy named Robin Hanson who's an interesting thinker, and he's co-authored a book called The Elephant in the Brain about the hidden motives in our daily lives. The book says exactly what you say, but Hanson doesn't seem to find that depressing or disheartening. As far as I remember, he put it like this: humans don't look that bad when compared to other animals. The only way we look bad is when we compare ourselves to the angels we pretend to be. Reminds me of a quote, limited in nature, infinite in his desires. Man is a fallen god who remembers the heavens. Alphonse de Lamartine. First impressions are a very ducking big deal. They can be. My partner is on the road a lot for his job. This particular week he was away with one of the big bosses of the company. Everyone in the office knew the big boss was traveling with my partner in the car. My partner got a call from a customer and had to ring the office to finalize the sale all via the car kit. Office guy picks up the phone. Yeah, what do you want? In a super uninterested and gruff voice. Needless to say, he left a lasting impression. Seems like it's not that important, but in a workplace that kind of thing stands out. I worked at a pretty small retail chain in Australia that was doing very well overseas. Every now and then, big boss from overseas flies over to check up on how things were going. All I've ever heard is bitchy things about this woman. Anyway, one unassuming day, this lady walks right up to the counter, and within 10 seconds I say, "Hi, how are you going today?" with a smile. This lady kind of awkwardly laughs, and my store manager laughs hysterically and is like, "OMG fats Nicole. How you goof. How rude, you assumed she was a customer." And Nicole just looked to my manager politely and said, "Well, actually, you should assume everyone is a customer and treat them in that exact way." That was perfect. This was my first job, and I was totally embarrassed. But it was flipped, and I realized that that interaction actually looked great for me, and I immediately impressed the big boss. Stupid of my manager to try and humiliate me. Some people just don't get a happy ending. Some people never find happiness or satisfaction. People tell you that there is light at the end of the tunnel, but for some people there isn't. They never get to see any light, just darkness. Yeah, I once lived with someone like that. She was in her 70s/80s, and I rented a room in her house for a few months. She was truly miserable. She told me about how she grew up in Turkey with an absent father and abusive alcoholic mother. She told me how she escaped her overbearing family by marrying an Indian diplomat. Then how her husband abused her for years. She was missing teeth because of it. Then when her family moved to Canada, how she worked 4 years for her husband and kids with no thanks. By the time I moved in with her, she was all alone, living in low-income housing, yelling at her kids on the phone once a week about how they are terrible children who never visit, and ranting to me about how terrible her life had been, and how many regrets she had. She was an awful person to be around, but it was clear she had lived a life full of suffering. A parrot can't say anything they haven't heard. Sometimes people who have only lived through malice and hate can't understand or reciprocate love. It's really difficult to do something that no one has shown you before. It's much easier to stick with what you know. There are no single women in your area willing to meet you. Those bastards lead to me. Not to me. You're in the wrong area, buddy. There are, checks webpage, 120 hot and single women in my area right now. All human beings are capable of being viciously immoral. There's a point where we can be forced or force ourselves to become completely animalistic. We can perpetrate murder and genocide as just one example. And if justified to ourselves correctly, we will feel no remorse. We like to think that the only people capable of such horror are a minority, but the truth is that we are all capable of it given the right circumstances. There is a Star Trek film that deals with this. Nemesis. Basically a clone of one of the virtuous characters shows up hellbent on destroying humanity. The captain pleads with him at one point, saying that the man he is couldn't possibly do the things he is. He is better than that. His blood is better than that. The villain's response: he is what his life has made him. More befitting here is I'll show you my true nature. Our true nature. People can just simply fall out of love with you for no reason. You fretting about whether it's you or something else, or the investment is basically you giving them the reasons to strengthen the reason why they stopped loving you, when they could very much not have a reason at all. Feelings and priorities can change. More people need to understand the difference between lust and love. Lots of young people think they love their so, but it's really just lust. It takes hard emotions sometimes to figure out who you truly love. Like how some people don't become religious until someone they truly cared about dies. A friend of mine did something really dumb once and ended up in the hospital for 2 days. When he finally woke up, to his surprise his girlfriend was there and was the only one there. Turns out she knew something was up when he wasn't answering the phone. She found him at his apartment and called 911 and took off work for the next 2 days to stay with him in the hospital until he woke up. As you can imagine, the emotions of hearing that in person hit him hard, and that's when he found out how much he loved her. It's like how people become best friends after surviving something very difficult together. Yet most people today never get close to death, and people are simply friends because they were neighbors, perhaps. You explained that beautifully. It makes me want to share a story, if you don't mind. I started dating a very kind, caring man during a very unstable period of my life. My father was terminally ill, and he was slowly getting worse and worse. I even warned my so in our early stage of dating that if he felt like he wouldn't be able to handle his illness and all the fallout after my father's pending death, I would understand, but that we would have to break it off then and there, simply because I would not be able to deal with that on top of everything else. He was almost insulted that I even suggested such a thing and told me we would go through this horrible time together. He has been by my side every step of the road since. The day before my amazing father passed, he told me to hold on to this boyfriend, that he was the good, caring person I deserved, and he was right. Losing my father 2 months ago has been the hardest thing I ever experienced in my life, and my so has been there for me even during my most unlovable moments of anger, grief and depression. I will never forget the moment right before I took a seat on the front row during Dad's funeral and seeing him standing there in his black blouse, shaven face and the most compassionate, meaningful look in his eyes. That was the moment I knew I truly loved him. The world goes on after you die. The world went on before you were born. Nope. My dog, Artemis, created the entire universe and everything in it last Thursday, including all memories of the past. Prove me wrong. Not everyone is going to like you, no matter how hard you try. Do I need to be liked? Absolutely not. I like to be liked. I enjoy being liked. I have to be liked. But it's not like this compulsive need to be liked, like my need to be praised. Would I rather be feared or loved? Easy. Both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me. We are not all special. Some of us will not find love. We are not all equal. Change never to not, and that's a fine haiku. Liked your suggestion so much I took it. Thank you. You will likely be lost to history. In just a few centuries. Nobody will remember or even knew you existed. Sad, I know. But you just have to accept it. Just make sure to dab or do a handstand or something dumb when a volcano goes off to give archaeologists a good laugh a couple hundred or so years later. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more daily Reddit videos.